everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. I am your host, Dr. Michael Lennox, coming at you for the week of May 23rd. As ever, I'm here with producer Zoe. How you doing today, Zoe?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, it's feeling good today.
Feeling good. All right. I'm loving hearing that. It's actually, we're probably in the easiest week of the hardest month.
Okay,
That's what I'll say about this third week in May.
I'm down with that.
Me too, man, because that eclipse was freaking brutal, as was the aftermath to it. I do want to keep everybody updated on my voice journey because this very day that Zoe and I are recording this week's podcast, as soon as I finish my clients for the day, I'm driving down to Orange County to see a speech pathologist who's supposed to do an intervention on my larynx, a physical intervention, which is promised to potentially fix this problem instantaneously.
Amazing.
I got to tell you, I don't believe it.
Yeah, it feels like a movie where she'll just like lightly hit some pressure points all around your neck and bam.
Listen,
We're good.
the ENT said that one session in this way could change it all. And then I was talking to my pal Colette Barron-Reed,
Mhm.
who I get together with every month to make videos for her community. And she had this problem 25 years ago. And she had an intervention with a
Oh,
speech pathologist who went into her larynx with a physical intervention, and it immediately fixed the problem. So tune in next week, not only for the last bit of May and early June's astrology and whatever dreams we have, but you can also find out the update of the story of Michael's voice. Speaking of the voice and communication, one of the things that's prominent for the week is the changing of signs by Mercury. Mercury started his retrograde in the sign of Gemini, but is moving back into Taurus today. One of the things that we always interpret when a planet goes retrograde is where are they going retrograde? So in the case of this particular Mercury retrograde, and in fact, all of the Mercury retrogrades of this year are going to do this same kind of thing. They're going to move between the air signs and the earth signs, knitting together our air consciousness with our earth consciousness. So in particular, with the two signs in question being Gemini and now Taurus, Gemini is the sign of thinking, expressing, and words themselves. It is a Mercury-ruled sign. My experience has told me that when Mercury's retrograde in Gemini, it's a little bit more discombobulating because it is the land of thoughts themselves, that the planet of thoughts and expression is, turned around and paying attention to things inside of our consciousness. And so we bump into stuff communicatively with more chaos and breakdown, I think, when Mercury is in Gemini. But as Mercury backtracks into Taurus, it's as if he's saying we all need to be more grounded in love in our minds. Taurus is Venus ruled. It's an earth sign. It's got a lot of stability built into it, where Gemini is more chaotic and a mansion where thoughts can get scattered, where anxiety and monkey mind is a natural artifact that we all struggle with. We all struggle with overthinking. And Mercury in Gemini going backwards by retrograde is partially going to be taking us all on a journey of how do we get away from scattered, anxious mind, overthinking, chaotic thoughts, and ground them in our hearts. Gemini back to Taurus. Now, the retrograde itself continues all the way through June 2nd and June 3rd, depending on your time zone. So at the end of the day on June 2nd, Mercury will stop moving backwards, and he'll be in Taurus from today till then. I mean, he'll be in Taurus when he turns around. He doesn't miraculously pop out of Taurus when he turns around, meaning that we are now in very different territory with how communication might break down because Mercury is now in this grounded and stable sign of Taurus. Listen, it's probably anybody's guess with which sign is going to be more challenged in communication, in Gemini or Taurus, because I think that Mercury retrograde in Taurus isn't going to make our communication grounded and stable. It's going to take us through lessons and challenges that demand that we consider what's our felt experience in a moment. What would the grounded, loving, stable approach be when communication breaks down? I think that Mercury retrograding here could be discombobulating, as all Mercury retrogrades are. But if I leave you with nothing else than this, so instead of getting into the nitpicky, this is happening, that's happening, because we're going to talk about that later in the podcast. There is an important Mercury transit later this week. If nothing else, think about this question. How can I ground my communication more profoundly into my heart? Another way of saying it is, how can I become more congruent with how I think and express and how I feel? So with Mercury in Gemini, it's all about the thinking and expressing, but then Mercury in Taurus, it's all about grounding and coming from a loving place.
I love that.
And when this whole passage is complete, all of us will be a little bit better communicators, and all of us will be a little bit more grounded in our hearts with what we want to focus our mind's attention on. I think the biggest astrological event of the week is absolutely Mars moving into Aries. Mars is the planet of action, decision-making, goals and ambitions, the physical body, and Aries is his ruling sign. One of the simplest ways of understanding what it means to have Mars in any sign is to just think of it this way. If Mars is our decision-making planet, then the sign he is in colors how all of us choose and decide. So Mars has been in Pisces for the last 5-6 weeks. Pisces is the mansion of imagination, the unconscious, the spiritual connection, the collective. It's that third water sign. That's been challenging for decision-making and action because we decide through the sign that Mars is in, and Mars is not debilitated in Pisces, but he definitely has to, sort of wade through a lot of emotion and intuition before clear decisions can be made. That changes radically tomorrow. Mars moves into Aries and we are on fire. We're fired up with our actions, our decisions, our readiness to move, our physical energy. Impulsivity rises up. Assertiveness turns into more aggression with ease. And so tempers flare a little bit more when the planet of action is in the sign of war. So everything changes energetically tomorrow with this ingress.
Are we like perceiving fights?
Oh, absolutely. It's like this.
No.
Mars in Pisces would be like,
no.
wait, should we fight? Should we fight about this? And then Mars in Aries is like, fight you, bitch, right now. Without thinking about it first. Yeah. But also, let's not overemphasize the negative. The very positive thing is that the planet that rules our body and choice-making mechanism is home. He's comfortable. He knows how to choose and decide. Mars is the warrior archetype whose basic concern is dividing the world into right and wrong. Mm-hmm. Good and bad. I fight for that which is right, and I fight against that which is wrong. Mm-hmm. So with Mars in Aries, all fights are going to be a little bit more, fisticuffs, but hopefully with the discernment of, is this right or wrong, and not to be fighting for something that maybe you ought to be releasing or letting go. I'll say this, that this would not be my favorite week or month for Mars to move into Aries, simply because we're still in that somewhat amplified energy of the eclipse season, truly, until the new moon in Gemini that's coming, that really puts an end note to the process that's just behind us. And Mercury's retrograde, and that sets us up to be a little bit, easily knocked off balance, right? So this thrust of assertive energy with Mars moving into Aries, I think, is a marvelous energy to have access to, especially when it comes to goals, projects, and desires to make things happen. He even connects with Jupiter on Sunday, right? He moves into Aries tomorrow, and then just 5, 6 days later, he connects with the enormity and the beneficence of Jupiter in Aries. And that's also wildly positive from the archetypal perspective of creating, choosing, deciding, and then connecting with the infinite sense of possibility that Jupiter brings. So all of that is yummy. And it's like a flamethrower being turned on in the midst of a chaotic moment where we barely know which end is up. On the whole, I want to make sure that I'm leaving all y'all with this idea of being happy and excited that for the next 6 weeks, because Mars will be in Aries till early July, that it gives us access to really powerful movement that we can put in any direction that we choose. And then by virtue of him meeting up with the great expander that Jupiter is on Sunday, then as we push forward into that last final week of May and into June, we are likely to enjoy a sense of momentum and enthusiasm and confidence about what it is we're looking to create. If you guys remember what I talked about when Jupiter himself moved out of Pisces and into Aries, I spoke about the principle of manifestation, and that while Jupiter, who is the planet of manifestation, was in Pisces, which was the first 4 months of the year, how we would approach our desires and goals and the things we want to create for ourselves in the world of abundance and prosperity had to be handled from the perspective of your imagination of what's to come, felt experiences of what you desire to create. Then Jupiter moved out of Pisces and into Aries a little bit ago, and that changed everything. Now it's time to act, time to put your ideas into action. And Mars joining him this week means pedal to the metal, kids. It's no longer an acceptable sort of notion to be, oh, I'll wait till that happens, or I'm not quite ready, or I'm uncertain about how I want to start. No, this is the week to begin putting, action into motion and start doing the things that will help you create the desired outcome of more of everything and anything, because that's what Jupiter brings, is more. Mars is the planet that helps us make the things we want, and the combination of these two as we move out of this week and into next week is going to really infuse us all with a tremendous amount of confidence, enthusiasm, and a sense of momentum that we can take on the world. The other significant transit of the week is a Mercury transit. So we're talking about what I call the triple transits, meaning connections from Mercury to other planets that he's going to do a total of 3 times. The triple transits in this Mercury retrograde are actually kind of slim. There's really only 2 of them. One of them is a semi-square to Chiron. Doesn't happen to be hitting this week, so I'm not going to be speaking into it in particular, but I'm going to mention it here as we consider the whole Mercury retrograde cycle and understand that a big part of it is actually going to involve wounded consciousness getting in the way of clear communication so that we can work on that. Chiron is the wounded consciousness. A semi-square is mild conflict energy. So not major, but just enough to be something we'll trip on. We're all going to be tripping on some of our wounds and hurt feelings during this Mercury retrograde. The other triple transit is actually a gift that has warning, if you will.
Okay.
I always think about that movie When Death Becomes Her, when Meryl Streep drinks the elixir that Isabella Rossellini gives her. She just drinks it, right? Rossellini says, and now a warning. And Meryl Streep goes, now a warning? It's like a little late. Yes, Mercury is trining Pluto. That's a gift, ultimately, because it means that as we move through this retrograde cycle, we're going to have help and assistance to go into very deep places of both self-investigation and conversations with others. So if the one transit over here on the left is making sure that our wounded spaces are agitated enough to sort of rise them up into our conscious awareness, it's Mercury trining Pluto that says, let's talk about it and let's go deep. Pluto holds the shadow and the underworld in his bailiwick. A trine is harmonious geometry. Easy, deep conversations are a result of this transit on the one hand, but easy, deep conversations are also the challenge that this transit brings up as well, because what if you're not ready for that conversation or depth? What if this is an experience that comes at you from somebody else's demand that you go into a deep consideration with them, where it's like, I didn't want to have that deep talk, but there they were, knocking on my door at midnight. So Mercury trine Pluto is a gorgeous opportunity to go into the shadow and do some fixing and adjusting, but it's also going to be a little bit potentially scary or overwhelming at times, depending on how deep you gotta go. This transit hits on Wednesday, but it first hit back on April 28th. So while this won't apply to every single person listening to this podcast, because we each have our own natal chart that we dial into the collective energies differently, person to person, but lots of you are going to be facing some difficult conversations and thought processes this week that will absolutely harken back to that last bit in April. So if you think back to April 28th and give or take a day or two on either side of that date, if there was any challenges at all in what I like to call neck up consciousness, meaning what you're thinking and focusing on or conversations you're having with others, you will likely have to revisit either the same interaction or negotiation or something thematically similar this week. We will also then wrap this energy up around June 10th, when Mercury and Pluto will trine each other for the third and final time. So that means there's a connection between late April, this coming week, and June 10th, that second week in June, that could be connected to important conversations or thought processes that are absolutely transformative. Mercury trining Pluto on any given day would guarantee some depth and gravitas in your communicative experience, but you throw it into a retrograde and now it's a process. Now it's got a bigger grab for us. It's not just a passing day where communication is going to be deeper. It's not once, but twice, but 3 times you got to move through this process, and we'll come out the other side of it changed in how we think, how we negotiate, how we communicate, and how we perceive our lives. All right, kids, we made it through the bumpiest weeks of May. I don't think we're quite done with just the general amplified challenges of energy that we're grappling with, but truly the most difficult portions of the month are in our rear view mirror. And while what we're facing this upcoming week is slimmer than the last couple of weeks, they're kind of interestingly dicey because personal planet changes impact us all at the personal level. And because both Mars and Mercury are very activated this week, we are all going to be very activated this week with regard to actions we're taking and conversations we're having. So just stay nice and mindful this week. Try to rise up and remember what it is to come from love first into your communication experiences. because then you're honoring the power of Mercury in Taurus. You're starting with love. And then when it comes to actions and movement and excitement for the things you want to do and make, just move slow enough so that you're not taking that Mars in Aries energy and, destroying things with it, but using the extra sense of momentum and willingness to take action to put some plans into, movement and projects into initiation. Have at it.
All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show. This week we have a call-in dreamer, Day. Day, how's it going? What you dreaming?
So the first thing that I remember is being in the living room of the house that I lived in when I was in my 20s. I step around the corner and it's like I step into a column of energy, and it's almost impossible to articulate what that felt like. It was as if I was standing in the truth of it all.
Truth of it all, meaning like existence.
Exactly.
Woo!
Yeah. And even as I stood there, and it didn't last very long, but even as I stood there, I knew that I was dreaming and that I would wake up and this feeling would be gone and I wouldn't be able to capture it again. And it was the most amazing thing that I've never been able to tell anybody about accurately.
So wait a minute, though. Am I clear in hearing you accurately that the actual thought of this is a brief visit with existence itself, and I won't remember, it was a lucid notion in the dream itself?
Exactly. It was if I
Oh,
had that much
Lord.
lucidity in the dream that I knew I was standing there in this amazing energy of all that is, and that it was about to end and I would be back in the world.
Wow. Is that the complete dream, or is there more to it?
That is the complete dream.
That
And it's
is the
actually
complete
one
dream.
of three that I've had over the last few months that are different dreams, but they have that same feeling of all of a sudden being shown the truth of it all. I imagine it to be the feeling when we would transition, that feeling of, oh yeah, this is who I am. This is what it's really like.
Wow.
Yeah. That reminds me of when my mom transitioned. I actually felt the physical ramifications of her energy letting go of me and transitioning, and the bliss and the ecstasy was extraordinary. Perhaps the most I've ever felt in my life. And it lasted a good whopping 3 seconds. Right?
Exactly.
And this is important because throughout a life, even if we devote ourselves completely to our spiritual explorations and our understanding of the magnificence of existence, we're only going to get a handful of really profound, numinous moments where that connection is undeniable. I've had my handful of them, and they're irrefutable, and yet I'm a human being in a body, which means every once in a while I'm going to doubt this existence consciousness. And what I love about this dream is you were being exposed to both a numinous experience of existence itself, irrefutable and profound, and the very important piece of information, which is you don't get to live here.
Exactly.
Right?
That's how it felt.
But it is, capital I, capital S. It is. And And we get to touch into this periodically, and we have to survive on that little meager, satisfying moments. Talk to me about your 20s, though. What do you imagine is the reason your psyche is taking you back? I'm assuming you're not in your 20s now.
I am in my 50s. This has been 30 years ago, and the 20s were hard. I got married at 16,
Oh.
and I had two small kids by the time I was 22.
Wow.
And a marriage that was just so uncomfortable and horrendous. And when I dream of that house, normally it's fraught with all of that.
Of course.
And I went into therapy in my 20s and dealt with some childhood abuse issues. So the last part of my 20s were awesome because I was able to put my foot on the right path.
That's right. Get transformation getting going. And I love that. Get your foot on the right path.
Yeah.
That's beautiful to me, where then an environment that lives in eternity, time is an illusion. So that moment, of 30 years ago still exists in consciousness itself. It's like your psyche was saying, even then.
Yeah.
Even then you were part of existence.
Right. I think that's so beautiful.
Well, me too. So wait a minute now. We've got a couple more minutes. Talk to me about these other two dreams that are coming in succession with this one in recent weeks.
It was over a few months, and one of them was absolutely astounding, and I loved it so much. I was in a group of people in this really wide hallway, and we were all moving toward something. There was this feeling of moving toward something specific. And the only person that I recognized or people was my first love and his dad. And nobody spoke. We all just moved toward this whatever. And then at some point, a bunch of people kind of split off to the left and they went out into this gorgeous forest. And the rest of us went straight and we came to a dead end. So then in that moment of coming to this dead end, I thought, I should have made that turn. And the second that I thought that, I was in another place altogether. And it was this bright, beautiful place that felt like a town square. It was outside, it was bright, and I was standing in line and I was holding something and I could feel the weight of it, but I couldn't see the shape of it or know what it was. I was standing in a line of people that felt like they were going to, like the kind of counter that you see in a bank.
Mm-hmm.
We were standing there and this whole place was infused with the color turquoise. Even there was nothing there that was turquoise, but it felt like turquoise. And it was that same feeling of, this is it. I'm in that place of all knowing and everything is fine. And this is who I really am.
Oh, beautiful. And I love this image of a group of people in a hallway, right? Hallways are about transitions and moving to new, iterations of our journey. And you're reminded of love. That love and connecting to others through love is sort of the way we get closest to feeling that beautiful sense of existence itself. Love is how we feel it in our bodies most acutely. And somehow you are in this dream sort of being shown what it can be or what can occur when you make the choice to go into the forest, which says, I'm going to investigate. I'm going to look at the shadow. I'm going to go into the hidden realms of my humanity so that I can do my best to experience a simultaneous expression of my human parts and my divine parts, both, as opposed to running into the dead end, which is to follow like lemmings what everyone else is doing. The sort of unconscious path. Listen, let's throw out this third dream. Let's make it a triptych, baby.
So the third dream was one of those nights where I just went from dream to dream. It was all, my husband was having ex-wives come back and try to woo him back. And he was saying, no, I'm happy. And then I was cleaning a lot. I mean, it's like I would walk into a room and there would be something horrible, like a faucet that was just covered in gross, and I was cleaning. And then my daughters were around and they were pouring water on the floor, just random weird dreams. And throughout these dreams, every now and then, just in twice throughout these dreams, it would just be that moment of, ah, I'm here. This is
Ah.
what it is. I'm back in that space.
Okay. I'm so glad we brought this third one into our consciousness for our listening audience, because this is the dream where you are expressing what it can be to live connected to the divine. Meaning, we still got to chop wood and carry water. We still got to clean the house. We still got to manage our relationships and make sure that our intimacy is still present. We've got to be in family dynamics. So these chaotic dream to dream to dream to dream, we're all about like, this is the chop wood, carry water portion of your life. Maintain your relationships, clean the house.
Right.
You get to have periodic moments when you are reminded of your extraordinary existence, that you are a child of God and therefore a reflection of the divine, and that we are carried through this mystery in this beautiful, beautiful way. But we don't get to know it rationally day to day because we have this thing called a mind. That, the mind that's there to keep us separate from God and consciousness. But that's the mind that reminds us to clean the floor and check in on our husband.
Right. And, I actually am so grateful always for my dreams. But I mean, aside from flying dreams, which are great,
Yes.
these moments are
Oh.
sustaining.
Well, I love the fact that they live so powerfully in your waking life memory, because that's what we also want to do with our, experiences that do come that remind us of our existence, is we have to hold them with great care in memory for the days when we feel separate and stuck and squeezed and
Right.
challenged, where that chopping wood and carrying water feels like a burden.
Sure.
We use our memory of our deep experiences that show us how magnificent life and existence is to carry us through those moments. Ah, what a group of dreams, Day. I'm so glad you came on. This was a delight.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been great.
Yay.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.